It is time to talk some rugby. We're going to be joined on the line in just a second by the former Ulster back row and Ireland back row, Stephen Ferris, to talk about Ulster's woes on and off the pitch. So you've been encouraging us to have an Ulster voice on to talk about it, so that's exactly what we've done, and in the company as well of a contributor that we really like and have had on plenty of times over the last while. So we're going to talk to Stephen Ferris in just a minute. But the thing that's kicked all of this off has been Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball on Monday, and here's exactly what he had to say about Ulster.
Potentially they could, one of those, Carberry or Byrne, could leave a winning culture, a winning environment. You look at someone like Jordy Murphy, I have to say, he it can't be easy playing some of the best rugby of his life, both from a Leinster perspective but also from Jordy's perspective, where things are clearly not going right in Ulster. They don't have a coach, a little bit of a basket case at the moment, and he's going up there to try and play his rugby from next year on.
I would say no if I was the two lads. No, not going.
Yeah, but it's a tough one, it is, because I would too, because there's a good chance you're going to be winning medals, or you're going to be in the hunt for winning medals. At the moment, the Ulster are a while away from that.
Isn't the coaching better? Like, I have a coaching ticket here which has...
That's the other thing. So a young player...
How am I actually going to get better?
Yeah, so they don't know, not knowing what's going to happen up in Ulster, who's going to come in, am I going to improve as a player? Whatever about playing more often, what skills, what am I being taught on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, Brian O'Driscoll on Monday's OTBAM, and the basket case quote was obviously one that was pulled out there and challenged by the Ulster wing, Jacob Stockdale, this week, probably slightly misrepresenting a broader, maybe more nuanced point from Brian O'Driscoll on Monday's show. But you've been exercised about it. We've had lots of contact about this conversation this week, encouraging us to have an Ulster voice on to speak about it. And one of those emails was from David Kenny this week, who dropped an email to say, love listening to the engaging rugby chat on the podcast. However, was disappointed listening to the latest podcast regarding the Ulster situation and believe a huge opportunity was missed. While all of the lads are entitled to their own opinions on the matter, it was all solely from a Leinster perspective. There were several key and salient points omitted by not having an Ulster perspective on this matter, such as the impact of enforced decisions from the RFU, etc., and the situation of Ulster, or that rubbish, as Liam says, according to David here, Liam Toland, who was on us with us during the show, who is from Munster, by the way, I should point out. Hopefully in the future, when discussing these off-field topics specific to provinces, there will be a contribution from a more informed representative of that province. And Stephen Ferris, that is where you come in. Good morning.
Good morning, how are we?
Very good, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Good. So, no problem.
To misrepresent Brian on the show on Monday, Ulster is a basket case. What's the defence?
Well, I'm sitting here with my proud Ulster training jersey that I pulled out of the wardrobe to do this for you guys. But look, I think I said on social media late last night that I was going to get ripped into Brian O'Driscoll today, and that's certainly right. It's pretty much disagree with what Brian said. I think if anybody looks at the last couple of years within Ulster rugby, on and off the pitch, things haven't been great. So for Brian to come out with that opinion, I think is totally fair. However, I believe that going forward, Ulster are a team that are going to galvanise themselves. They're going to get back together. They're going to get back in the straight and narrow, and they're going to try and get to the heights that they were at 5 or 6 years ago. And I think people easily forget where Ulster were 5 or 6 years ago. And there's been articles that I've read in the paper about should they abolish Ulster because of what they've been through over the last 18 months and blah, blah, blah. I think that's complete nonsense. I think there are great foundations in place at Ulster, but just the last year, 18 months, has been so negative. And another thing, Adrian, to talk about is, Jacob Stockdale said about Brian when he been up to Belfast, he could count in both hands. Many times Brian has been to Belfast. Well, I'm in Belfast every single day, and it's been on everybody's lips about what's happened in Ulster rugby over the last 18 months to 2 years. And, there has been so much negativity. And I think even the last 3 weeks, just the way the lads have played on the pitch, got themselves out of a bit of a hole. The shackles have been off. They're playing some really entertaining rugby, playing and beating some good teams. So for me, the last 3 weeks has brought a lot of positivity. And, I think going forward, that's what the boys have got to do, is got to go out and express themselves on the pitch and try and forget about all the craziness that's happened over the last couple of years.
I know that Shane Logan, the Ulster Rugby CEO, has been a lightning rod for a lot of the stake on this, and I know that you've been critical of him yourself over the last while, but he's done some various bits and pieces, done some select interviews, and has answered some tough questions over the course of that, to be fair to him. But
he's answered his own tough questions, in fairness to him.
That is a fair observation. News journalists have again been banned from the press conferences this week, and like we speak about sort of Ulster Rugby trying to challenge that image of a basket case. They've been banned again this week. There hasn't been any great explanation for it. There's been a bit of fuzzy logic in terms of sports journalists told us they didn't want them in, and then the sports journalists said that wasn't at all what we said. The news journalists were denied the opportunity to come, and ultimately, if they had been let in initially to ask whatever questions they wanted to ask, the story would have been dead by now. What I'm saying is it doesn't appear as if Ulster Rugby are actually helping themselves here in terms of that openness and transparency.
I totally agree with you. I think every single day up here in the papers, there seems to be something else that's fueling the fire. And everybody just wants this to go away. Everybody wants to be talking about the Ulster Rugby victory against Glasgow and the 5 points and the last-minute try by Sean Reedy. That's what everybody wants to be reading in the papers, instead of picking up the papers and seeing the media ban, and there's a whole farce is kicked up about that, and people are getting stuck into the media consultants at Ulster Rugby. And I just think, from a broader perspective, they just need to get on with things, and it's really, really tough. And I think it's had an effect on the players over the last number of months. And going forward, they've only one game left at the end of the season here against Munster away on Saturday, and just all this negative press that Ulster Rugby are receiving can't be good for the team. And hopefully they get it all sorted out, because to me it's laughable at times.
Yeah, because ultimately, if you've nothing to hide, there's nothing to be lost by flinging open the doors. I mean, we've heard about, the core culture, what the line was about, the core values of respect, inclusivity and integrity. Like, it feels as if it's a little bit from that at the minute in terms of the hierarchy at the club.
Yeah, I suppose I've been a big someone who's said about Shane Logan potentially not being up to the job, and the reason that I said that is because of the world domination speech that we've all heard about. And do you know what? It's starting to get to me that I'm having to repeat myself over and over and over again, because even in his post-trial comments that he come out with, the in-house media interviews that Shane Logan has done, he's come out and said the same stuff. He's come out and said about Ulster Rugby's, or Ulster in general, has got over 2 world wars and everything else. That's not what it's about currently. What it's about currently is getting Ulster Rugby on the straight and narrow, getting the brand, getting the business back on track, and making sure that the team performs, because everything from the top down starts with the professional team, and he hasn't delivered what he promised. He needs to be made accountable for saying that Ulster Rugby are going to be the world's best team within 5 years. And then within a couple of months after the whole trial being over, which was a relief for everybody, he comes out and he said it could take 20, 30, 40 years for this to happen. And I'm just like, come on, just a bit more honesty would be much appreciated. And I think I speak on behalf of everybody within Ulster Rugby, fans, probably some of the players as well, and the greater audience, that if you have honesty, then that's the best policy to go with, instead of this nonsense of trying to bluff everybody and pull the wool over everybody's eyes. And Shane Logan is just he's just hanging in there for me. And the way the lads have played the last 3 weeks, the kind of with the shackles off, like I alluded to, and just the energy and the pace, and it just seemed so fresh, and an air of something new was starting to happen. I think in the next season, if there was a new CEO in charge of Ulster Rugby, that would really, really help that.
Stephen, morning. It's Dave here. A new CEO is one side of the debate, but a new head coach is the other. And
yeah.
I mean, we are looking at maybe some additions that Ulster could possibly make to their squad in the close season. The basket case comment from Brian was stemming from that story that one of Joey Carberry or Ross Byrne might end up in Belfast. But you can understand why any player, whether it's Ross Byrne or Joey Carberry or an import from another league or another country, why they'd have serious questions as to whether or not they would want to go to Belfast, because right now they've no idea who they're going to be playing for next season. Is there any progress on that road? Are there any stories, any word emerging from Kingspan Stadium as to who's actually going to be taking this team forward? Because as you said, it doesn't really matter what's done off the field. The whole thing is built on the brand that's developed by success or otherwise on it. And right now, there's just no direction. It's rudderless because they don't have a leader.
Dave, I completely agree with you. And I would love to be able to sit here and tell you that Ulster have more or less got a new coach signed, sealed and delivered, and things are going to be a lot better for next season. But I think that's the main concern for everybody, is that nobody has a notion what's going on. All we're being told is that John O'Gibbs is leaving at the end of the season. They're doing a coaching review, that they're going to get somebody employed. There's names being bandied about, but nothing's concrete. So if I was Jordy Murphy, if I was other players wanting to come to Belfast, would I, if I was playing for another club, want to come to Belfast and play rugby in Belfast? Probably not, because it just seems like there's nothing there that would be a big attraction, especially what's going on and off the pitch over the last year. And when you don't have a head coach in charge, it's going to be very difficult for somebody like Bryn Cunningham to get recruitment and to get signings across the line, because they do need to strengthen the squad. They're losing a couple of key players this season. The whole balance of the squad is changing, the changing of the guard, really. But in saying that, you've got to look at the positive side and say that they have made a couple of shrewd signings with the likes of Jordy Murphy, who's going to be playing in a European Cup final in a couple of weeks' time. Younger players are starting to come through. Is Johnny McPhillips going to be a better player than Byrne or Carberry? Who knows? Is Byrne or Carberry got a better chance of playing for Ireland more often if they come and play for Ulster? So there's a lot to be juggled there, Dave. But at the minute, I totally agree with you. It's hard for Ulster Rugby to say, this is our product, come and play for us, we're on the up, because that's not the case.
Of course, the timing of it, Stephen, there probably is no worse a time to be looking for a head coach than the April of the year before a World Cup, because every head coach is tied up until after the World Cup. A lot of high-profile club coaches who feel they have a chance of coaching in the national game, well, they're looking at their situation thinking how many huge high-profile international jobs might be up for grabs after the World Cup. So there's no point signing a 2 or a 3 or a 4-year contract at a club like Ulster. And is there a need for some sort of an interim situation? A coach maybe with a lot of experience come in just for 12 or 18 months, and then you fish once again maybe in April of next year, when a lot of people might be willing to talk a little more openly about their immediate future.
I think you're possibly right. I think the Ulster Rugby recruitment process, when it comes to coaches, they don't want to make the same mistake again. If you look at the amount of coaches that have been and gone over the last 4 or 5 seasons, it is crazy. You look at Alan Clark, who's let go. He's now the head coach of Ospreys. Neil Doak, he's away to Worcester next season. Mark Anscombe, he left, he went to Canada. It just seems that Ulster needs stability. And if there is somebody to be brought in for 6 months, so if Ulster decide to say, look, we've done a review, we believe that there's nobody out there world-class enough to take Ulster to the next level, we're going to bring somebody in for next year or for one season, then I think everybody would be okay with that. But again, I go back to the point. Stephen? Sorry?
Could Brian McLaughlin be looked at again?
Could he? Why not? Why not? He's doing a good job with Ballynahinch. They're doing reasonably well. There's talks of Soper from Banbridge, who's doing really well. Guys who are homegrown, who know what Ulster's all about. So, look, to be honest, and I think it's terrible sitting here, because I don't have a notion. I have no idea who's going to be in charge of Ulster Rugby next season.
The other thing is whether
the tough thing.
Whether Brian McLaughlin would even want to go back, given the manager the
way the situation was left. I think when Brian McLaughlin was more or less sacked when he got Ulster Rugby to the European Cup final in 2012, I don't think he would just walk back into working for Shane Logan. That's for sure.
Yeah, the manner of he had to apologise for comments at the press conference. It was very messy, the whole thing at the end. So Carberry or Byrne, Stephen, which one do you want?
I'll flick a coin here, lads. I think Joey Carberry's a tremendous player. He's obviously been on the bench behind Johnny Sexton. For me, who is the better 10? I think I would go with Byrne. I think Joey Carberry's more versatile, can play a lot of other positions, and I would just like to see somebody come in who's going to dominate that 10 jersey. And for me, Ross Byrne would do that more than Joey Carberry.
What about the premise of it, of another Leinster guy coming into the squad, Stephen? Because myself and Aidan were talking about it before we came on air, and then immediately after we came on air. What is the tipping point in the eyes of a supporter as to how many non-Ulster men will be in your regular starting 15 before you decide, I don't want to go and watch this anymore?
Yeah, I know. It's something I've touched on, especially with Irish qualified players who are from South Africa. So you look at somebody like Vian Herbst, you look at Rob Herring, Robbie Diak, Sean Reedy, guys like that who, yes, they're Irish qualified, but they're not born and bred Ulster men. For me, growing up and playing Ulster 18s, 19s, 21s, coming the whole way through the system, there just doesn't seem to be as many of those guys coming through. And I know there is a lot of hard work. Yes, there is hard work being done in the academy, but I think everybody just kind of looks at what Leinster are producing and expects the same. I think everybody, Ulster fans, have got to be patient. But to go back to your point, it is frustrating. You've guys like Alan O'Connor who would die to be in an Ulster shirt, but like he's born and bred in Leinster. You have Clive Ross, again, he's not from up north. Then you're bringing in Marty Moore, then you've got Jordy Murphy, then you've got John Cooney. There's a third of your team that are from down south. And if you bring in an out half as well, then the fans start to go, right, okay, are we going to watch Ulster or are we going to watch Leinster B? And that's what people kind of talk about, and it's sad to say that.
A couple of things before we wrap, Stephen. There's been a lot of talk about the split, obviously, in the squad over the last while, and we've had the statement. It's hard to believe that everybody in the squad would have been behind the sentiment of that statement. What's your sense of this idea of a split in the squad and where it's at? Because this is another bit of a feature when we talk about this label of the basket case.
A split in the squad amongst the players, do you mean, Adrian?
That's apparently what's been spoken about, yeah.
Geez, I suppose looking from the outside in, I can't really comment too much on it because everything looks okay to me. The way the boys have been playing on the pitch, I'd have closer relationships to some of the older gents like Tommy Bowe and Rory Best and that, and I think they're just trying to keep their heads down. I think it's been a difficult 6 months, especially with it's all that's happened off the pitch. And they're just trying to keep their heads down and play some rugby. Is there a split? I think there might be a split between players and CEO. That's the only kind of split that I would imagine there would be because the guy has promised a lot of things and hasn't really delivered. But when you talk about the players, Adrian, I think they're going to work hard together. And I know, listening to Jacob Stockdale's interview, he thinks that the adversity over the last number of months has almost brought them together more, and the word that he used was galvanised them. So I just go back to your point, Adrian, I can't see it, and being around Belfast, it doesn't appear to be evident to me.
No, and it doesn't look, as I had a look at some of the attendances over the last few games, and it doesn't look like fans are particularly voting with their feet in terms of staying away. Like, it's 18,000 capacity, 16,000 for the Glasgow game, 13 at the Ospreys, 14.5 before that was the last game back in February for the Edinburgh game. Like, it doesn't look as if fans are particularly disengaged.
Yeah, I think those numbers might be misleading slightly. Just the amount of season tickets that probably
that
were supposed to be there.
Be that full on the night.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely at the Glasgow game there was, I'd say there was a few thousand off that, and all the talk has been about the renewing of the season tickets, and there's been campaigns on Twitter and social media in general just about not renewing their season tickets. And to be honest, there is a big stance against it, and it's going to be very, very interesting come the start of next season to see what the crowd capacities are going to be like, because a lot of people aren't happy with the way the two lads were dealt with, and two homegrown Ulster Rugby lads who won't be playing for Ulster Rugby next season. It is a sad state of affairs, but that's another talking point. But the fans haven't been happy, and I think it would be difficult either way. I think you'd get a couple of thousand. If the lads were still playing for Ulster Rugby next year, there would be a couple of thousand that wouldn't turn up because they are, and vice versa. So it's a very, very tricky one, Adrian.
Yeah, all right, Stephen, listen, you've been good with your time. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
No worries. Cheers, lads. Thanks as always.
On the line there, cheers from Belfast, addressing the idea of an Ulster basket case or not. We've had a bunch of comments in on the topic. Harry Baird wondering about that balance of an overseas 10 versus, so developing a Johnny McPhillips versus bringing in a Burner or Carby, which we addressed. Greg O'Mara is wondering how long the rebuilding process will take. And David Hollywood, when a team puts the silencer on the media, they turn a megaphone onto themselves and their issues. And that really sums it up for me in terms of what's going on with Ulster at the minute. So we'll keep a keen eye on that for you. But we did want to, on the back of the various contacts that we've had during the week, bring you an Ulster Voice to get their take on that.